Welcome to this podcast series exploring women's lived experiences of gambling harm and the ways gambling has become part of women's everyday lives. This series is part of a broader project looking at how gambling can often feel hard to avoid, showing up in the places where women socialise, connect, celebrate, and go about their daily lives. My name is Dr. Simone McCarthy, and I'm a public health researcher at Deakin University. My research focuses on the commercial determinants of health, particularly how industries like gambling shape everyday environments and experiences of harm for women. Today, I'm joined by Carolyn Crawford, who is a lived experience advocate and member of the Gambling Harm Lived Experience Experts, also known as GLEE. Carolyn has spoken publicly about her experiences of gambling harm and recovery, and now uses her voice to advocate for gambling reform and greater awareness of the impacts gambling can have on individuals, families, and communities. Through advocacy, media engagement, and community storytelling projects like Three Sides of the Coin, Carolyn shares her experiences in hope of helping others and contributing to change. Thank you so much for being here today, Carolyn.
Thanks for having me, Simone.
Before we get started, I just wanted to acknowledge that today's conversation may touch on experiences of gambling harm, mental health, and recovery. Please take care while listening, and if anything discussed raises concerns for you, support services are available. So, to begin, Carolyn, I'd love to start by hearing a little bit about what your life looked like for you at the time gambling became part of your everyday life.
Well, no, my life was fairly normal. I've got two boys that had moved on with their partners, and then got married, and I now have 6 beautiful grandkids. And I became quite lonely at that stage. They often say empty nest syndrome. Well, I used to laugh at that, but it is very true, very true. And I actually started a new job, and the boss was quite a nice person. And yeah, every time he wanted to go out, I'd go out with him, and we always went to the pokies, and that's how it all started.
And did you go for like non-gambling reasons and then eventuated into the pokies? What else did you do at those venues?
Not really. We always sort of went to a venue that had pokies, and he actually taught me how to use the pokies down here in Victoria. I only knew how to use the old one-arm bandits up in New South Wales back in the day.
Mm.
So he taught me how to use the new type machines, and occasionally we'd have dinner. We might just have a snack, or we might have dinner. We might discuss a little bit of work and things like that. But most of the time was spent at the pokies. And most of the time we were spent apart. He'd go off to one machine, I'd go to another. And we'd just sort of catch up on the roundabout.
Yeah. And how did gambling become something you engaged with more regularly?
He asked me away for a weekend and with some friends of ours, and um, I didn't have the money. So I borrowed the money from the company, what I called borrowed at the time, thinking I'd have that big win over the weekend and pay it all back, and that didn't happen. So then I started chasing the money, and the more I chased the money, the more I went to the pokies, and it just became such a habit that I couldn't stop. Didn't understand why I couldn't stop until I got caught stealing the money. Then I found out why I couldn't stop. I found out all about the addiction then.
And you've been quite open about your experiences in going to prison.
Yes, yeah. When I got caught, they charged me, and and apart from losing over 7 years, I'd stolen over $400,000, and that doesn't include my own money that went down the pokies. And I didn't realise that being an addiction, I didn't realise until I got to prison. And then sort of apart from that, I lost 7 years of my life. Because when I was asked by the police how long I've been stealing, I said a couple of years, maybe. And I said about 100,000, maybe. Well, it turned out to be 7 years and over 400,000. So that shocked me to think that I'd lost 7 years of my life to these things as well as the money, which I will add right here now. I have paid the money all back. So I owe the company nothing. I've got nothing. I've got no inheritance or super, but I don't have any debt to them.
Yeah. And how would you define your experiences of gambling harm. What did gambling harm look like for you?
Well, prison was the ultimate gambling harm for me.
Yeah.
But having said that, prison saved my life also because I learned about the addiction. I learned about myself in prison. I learned about the stress and everything I've been under for many, many years. The sorrow I've felt since my mother passed, because she passed when I was 18 and I was 64 when I went to prison. So I
Mm-hmm.
learned all about that. So it unpacked a lot of the things that could have led me to doing the gambling. Um, yeah, I had a lady the other day write something to say, I don't show any remorse. Well, I might not now because I'm sort of can control it a lot better, but the remorse is always there. I will never forgive myself for what I've done, and I know that, and that's fine with me. But it's a difficult situation because most people don't understand gambling, and most people, all gamblers, look quite normal. We don't look like we're drunk. We don't look like we're drinking alcohol. We're not staggering around. We're just normal. It's just we're just as severely addicted as a drug addict.
Do you think that there are harms from gambling that people don't really see or recognize or
Oh,
understand?
absolutely. Absolutely. You become a very good liar when you're a gambler, which
Mm.
is what I was. I was everywhere. I was at the supermarket. I was at friends that I didn't even have. I'd make up names. I'd lie to everybody. If they rang me, I'd say, no, I'm at the supermarket, just coming out of the supermarket, or give me a minute, I'm at a friend's place, and I'd bring up a name and I wouldn't even know a person by that name. So you become a very good liar,
Mm.
which is something I do not do now. I refuse to lie about anything now. But you're good at covering up. You become a totally different person to what you were than what I am now. I'm totally different now
Yeah.
to when I was gambling. I was a non-existent person gambling. I was going there. I can't even say in the end I was going there chasing the money. I was going there to just veg out and not understand why I couldn't stop going. Very difficult life.
Mm. And you've spoken very publicly about how gambling harm can happen to anyone. Why is this message important to you?
Oh, look, for starters, I don't want anybody else to end up in prison because of gambling like I did. I spent 18 months in prison because of what I did. The harm that it causes families, the people I met in prison, 75% of the ladies in prison with me were there because of gambling. The harm that they suffered, I'm what I class as the lucky one. I'm one of the lucky ones. My family and friends stuck by me. But I met many people in prison that the families just disowned them. And that's because people don't understand the addiction, don't understand that it's brainwashing, these machines brainwash you. And they hire psychologists to make sure they do brainwash you, which is so predatory. And that's why I speak out now, because I know what they do. I know that a legal industry should be made illegal because it's so dangerous. And I'm, like I said, I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm still here.
Mm.
Times I was driving home and I had trees lined up. I live down in the peninsula, and there's a hill called Oliver's Hill here, which would send you over a cliff into the water. I had that lined up. Many times I've thought about taking my own life to stop what I was doing because I knew it was wrong. But I'm, like I said, one of the lucky ones. I've got my children, and they've basically thinking of them saved my life.
And it's very interesting that I'm not sure who it was that said you weren't remorseful, especially when you're like you are the lucky ones. Like plenty of people don't make it out. You've got a lot to.
The person that said that had watched my video because I got a video through three sides of the coin. She watched the video three times. She hadn't spoken to me. She wasn't at the Q&A at the end of showing the video. And she emails in the questionnaire about, how you thought all this went
Yeah.
and just said, she doesn't show any remorse. Well, I'm yet to write back to her because I'm still trying to calm down after reading that.
Yeah.
But I am remorseful. I'm very remorseful. I'm very upset with myself for what I've done. I can't leave anything for my children, and they don't care, but I do. You know, so people that judge like that, and she doesn't have, people don't have the right to judge me. I've been judged by the best. I've been judged by a judge, and I've been judged by me. Nobody else has got the right to judge who I am and how I feel. And watching a video of me, yeah, it's not a lot of remorse in the video, but there's only so much you can put in a video as well.
100%. And the way I interpret it, it sounds a lot like those people who say personal responsibility, and we know the industry loves putting the onus on the individual. What do you think about that?
Well, look, you do have personal responsibility, of course you do, but nobody, but the industry itself should have the responsibility of letting you know that these machines can be dangerous. There's no sign on these machines, and I often say to people, if there was a sign, and don't get me wrong, this has got nothing against drug addicts because I know I'm basically similar, right? I always say that if there was a sign on that machine that said touching this machine is like having a hit of cocaine, I may never have touched it because I've never done drugs in my life. So, you know, for people to just think that it's easy, just stop. Just stop. It's not easy. And until you really learn about this, I was the same. Why didn't I just stop was the first question I asked my counsellor in prison. Why didn't I just stop? And then I learnt all about the damage that they'd done to my brain. And I know that damage is there for the rest of my life, and I've just got to keep control of it, which is sometimes not easy when you're in a downward spiral or something's happened. That urge still comes back. And you've got to fight it all the way. So nobody's got the right to judge, and nobody really knows what you're going through. Doing what I'm doing is trying to make people understand that this can happen to anybody. You know, like I was 64 when I went to prison. This can happen to anybody, but you can survive it. You can get through it, but more education needs to happen. People need to know that it's not you. It's the machines. It's the way they're set up. It's not you. The industry is such a powerful, product, shall we say.
And you mentioned,
sorry.
Yeah, you mentioned that, 75% of the women in prison with you were there for gambling. Do you think there are stereotypes about who experiences gambling harm?
No, definitely not stereotyped. Definitely not. Look, I had ladies in there that were, there was one lady in there that had kidnapped her doctor to gamble, and she had 8 children, and she left kids into the car to go and gamble. She was so obsessed, like myself. There was a doctor in there. There's police officers in prison. There's politicians in prison because of gambling. It can happen to anybody at any time. And it's not just pokies, like mine was solely and wholly pokies. It's not just pokies, it's horses, it's the apps on the phones and things like that that get people now. It's a disease, and it needs to be shown as a health crisis and a disease. I know they're sort of slowly getting there, but people other than the powers that be or the government need to start understanding, and the government need to start stepping up and understanding that the harm's there. It's costing them more in medical bills for mental health nowadays than what it ever did. And a lot of that's to do with gambling.
And do you think people in the Australian public think that this is an issue impacting women?
I think they do, but I think they always look. I think people more look at the racing side of things. The men betting in the pub and things like that. I don't think people really have caught on to the amount of money that's lost in the pokies. I think they think it's just a social night out, and that's where the money goes. But when you consider Victoria's going to lose over $3.3 million this year in pokey losses, then it just it's not just males or females. Although I have heard a statistic that there's more males going to the pokies now than there is females. but I haven't been in a venue for a long time. I don't know that fully well, but I do know the losses because I do the figure work.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's sad every month. It upsets me, and that's through every state and territory in Victoria, in Australia.
Yeah, and apart from the COVID years, the losses have only grown every time we get the statistics.
Oh, enormously, enormously, and it's a sad situation. Not getting my money anymore, but there's a lot of people spending and losing.
And
And
one
I
of
don't
the
know. It's something I don't understand. And a friend asked me the other day, where does the losses go? And I know the government gets quite a big percentage of that, but a lot of organisations that I am with have having money cuts, not increases to help the advocacy work.
mm,
I don't quite understand where's the money going because the roads are shocking, you know. So where's all that money going that they're getting from the losses and the pokies?
yeah, yeah, and the money that the state governments get from the taxes of gambling products doesn't have to go back into research or treatment. It's just distributed.
But where's it go? If I could see the roads getting better, if I could see other things happening, I'd say, well, okay, fair enough, that money's going to that. But back in the day when Tats Lotto first started and Tats and things like that, the money went to medical, went to the health. Well, our things that I do, which are now under the health department, are being cut because they don't have the money. Well,
Mm.
why? The losses are going up and the support's going down. Doesn't make sense to me.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the things we talk about in this project is the idea that gambling is really hard to avoid. Does this resonate with your experiences?
Oh, absolutely, especially here in Victoria. They're everywhere and the signs are everywhere. And it really makes it difficult to avoid just seeing them. Like everywhere I drive, you see the signs, and the pokey sign is always bigger than any other sign for a hotel or a club or whatever. The pokey sign stands out like a mile away. So it's very hard to say, well, I'll go on that road to avoid seeing that sign because they're everywhere. They're on every road. And it's very difficult. I feel like getting a can of spray can and paint it, but I couldn't get up to it to start off with, you know. But yeah, it's just I don't know whether taking away the signs would work. I know New South Wales changed from pokies to VIP lounges or something.
Yeah.
Well, as if people don't know what they are, you know. The only way this is all going to stop and the harm go away is, as I keep saying, put them all out in the middle of Port Phillip Bay and blow them all up. And I'd buy the dynamite to do that, but that's not going to happen, and we know that. That's
Yeah.
not reality.
Yeah. Do you think there's many places for people to go that don't have pokies?
No, no, definitely not. You can go to a restaurant or you can go, there's a couple of pubs down my way now that don't have pokies, but to get to those pubs, you've got to drive past two of them,
Yeah.
and they close early, whereas pokies stay open till 4 a.m. So there really isn't. And like I know there's a few suburbs with libraries after dark, but again, they close about 10 o'clock, and after 10 o'clock is when a lot of people want to go out away from their own situation at home, especially family violence situations.
Yeah.
A lot of women go and just end up at the pokies because of that situation. Loneliness is huge, and it sort of was half of my problem, and I know that now. Without actually feeling lonely, I was lonely.
Mm.
And yeah, because like work was consuming, but I was lonely. I come home to an empty house. So why come home? And a free meal, the incentive of having a free meal. The loyalty programs are absolutely wonderful. I had so many free meals that cost me $500.
Yeah.
So they're not free meals.
Yeah.
You've got to spend that money to get the free meal to start off with. And then you go and put, while you're waiting for your free meal, you're putting $50 in a poker machine. How can it be free?
And did you feel it was quite normal for women like yourselves to be in the pokey rooms?
Yes, at the time I did. At the time when I first started, I did. Um, you don't talk to anybody in there. It's not a social occasion. The most I ever said to anybody was if somebody was sitting next to me, I'd say, you can never win on these things, as I was putting another $50 in the machine.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be talking to people. I'd just be vegging out. And that's what they're designed to do. They're designed to take away your problems.
Mm.
And that's what it does. It just zones you out and you become a zombie until you get up and you walk out and you realize how much money you've lost. And that's when it hits you. And it's too late then, the money's gone.
And do you think the accessibility, the constant exposure to gambling changes how people think about gambling and the risks of gambling?
I think it does, in the respects that most people, and that includes myself, don't understand that you can become addicted to this. Addiction to me used to be drugs and alcohol. Never ever thought that a beautiful little colour machine that's just spinning a wheel with music and everything else, you could become that obsessed with them that you had to be there. And something that I now understand, but not a lot of people do. And when people are in the grip of a gambling situation, they don't. They find that the shame and stigma keeps you from getting help. You think you're the only silly person that's doing this, and you're not. You're not. Like I said, 75% of women in prison with me were there because of gambling. So you're not the only silly person. It's just finding the right way out of the situation and then being open and honest with yourself that you do have a problem and understand that problem hasn't been caused by you, it's been caused by the industry.
Yeah, and that real reframing takes a lot. What do you think the role of stigma and shame plays for women experiencing gambling harm?
Oh, look, stigma and shame is what leads you to suicide most of the time. Like the statistic on suicide now is enormous. Um, and thank God now they're starting to monitor that in the coroner's court, which is good. So the government might finally sort of start thinking, well, gee whiz, this is the statistic about it, so let's do something about it. The shame and stigma makes you, like I said, it makes you become a liar, a big liar, makes you become withdrawn, makes you wonder about your own life. Why are you doing this? Why don't you just stop? Why don't you get help? Where do I go to get help? And that's an issue in itself. It's all very fine to have these little cards in the venues that says, gamblers help. I picked up so many of those and then just threw them out when I got home because I was too ashamed to ring them. And the shame, it eats away at you. And like the shame's still there. The shame and stigma is still there. And like I said before, it's not going to go away. I just know now how to cope with it.
Yeah.
And that's taken a lot of counselling.
Mm. And you only started getting that support once you were in prison?
That's correct, yes. Yeah. When I got charged, nobody from legal aid or the police advised me to go to Gamblers Help. Nobody, which now I understand was a very bad move on their behalf because that would have gone okay in the court. The judge would have looked favourably at that.
Yeah.
So it's really important, and I'm very into like trying to fight the justice system at the present moment. I'm presenting at a conference in Adelaide in June, late June. I'm presenting at a justice community conference over there, which is fabulous. The courts need to understand why this happens to somebody, that it is an addiction. Locking them up is not going to solve any issues other than they get counselling. So it's a battle. It's a battle to keep people understanding what's going on. Was that the question, or did I
Yeah.
go off track?
No, that answers it perfectly. Once you received the support, what was your experience like with the counselors?
Look, I have my days where I walk in and say, "Don't you make me cry today," and sure enough, I walk out crying. He actually took me through exposure therapy. We started in the prison with him giving me just a piece of paper with a pokies machine on it. And I started shaking, I started crying, and I even vomited. And I thought, this is a piece of paper that cannot hurt me. I'm not putting any money in it, but I couldn't touch it. And it made me take that back to my cell and look at that every day. And in the end, I was able to take it back to him and say, okay, here you go, here's your bit of paper. And I was able to touch it. Then I did that when I got out. I used to travel up to see him, 2 hour trip to see him, and do exposure therapy whereby he took me to clubs. The first club we went to, or we only ever went to one because where he was, and there was only one club in the town. So we went there and I couldn't even walk inside the door without vomiting. So, and then after 6 to 8 weeks of going and exposing myself to a venue, I was able to sit in the venue, look around people, wanting to go up and tap them on the shoulder and say, don't do it. But I was able to watch the machines and have a cup of tea inside the venue. And look, I can't say, because I've had one lapse since then. So like I said, I'm never over this, but I'm a lot better than what I ever was. And that exposure therapy really helped me understand, you don't need to touch those machines. You know what they do to you. And if you start doing it again, you're only going to fall back in very quickly.
Yeah, and they're designed to pull you in.
They are designed to pull you in. But yeah, he was a fabulous counsellor. And like I said, I used to walk in and say, don't you make me cry today, and walk out crying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but the crying helped. The unpacking of my life helped because he didn't just talk about gambling. He didn't just talk about, the machines and what they did. He talked about my life and the trauma I've been through, losing my mum and everything else, and my 2 marriage breakdowns. And yeah, he really, really helped. And I think having that person to talk to, because, you can have your friends and you can have your family and things like that, but it's nothing like talking to an outsider to unpack things. And I still have counselling to this day with a lady from Gamblers Help, mainly because of the advocacy work. It just keeps me unpacking without being with family and friends.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great message as well to kind of keep going with the support.
Absolutely. You need to be able, because I live on my own, and I don't burden my children, or not children anymore. My eldest son's 50, so they're not children anymore. I've got grandkids and things like that, and I don't want them to end up the way I did. And when I do a performance, at the end of the performance, one of my lines is that I say, come on, you teenagers, get off the couch, give Nanny a kiss goodbye. You better not be on one of those gambling apps.
Right. Yeah.
Because that worries me, when they got their phones and I don't know about you, but you very rarely see anybody with their head out of their phone, whether it be a child or whether it be a teenager or whether it be an adult.
Yeah.
I've nearly ran over so many adults looking at their phone as they're walking along. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you don't know what they're doing, but they're a dangerous product. Phones are as bad as everything else. And they're grooming our children and my grandkids and things like that to gamble. It's just the industry is so predatory, and there's no remorse from them. Like that lady said, I don't show any remorse. Well, hello, does the industry? They don't care. Does the government? They don't care. So, like I said, don't judge.
Yeah, definitely not. What do you think needs to change so that women feel more comfortable reaching out for help?
Oh, well, the knowledge to start off with, to know where to go, because you can go to a lot of different things, but to get the right help, you need to know where to go, and you need to find the right counsellor. Like I find Gamblers Help fabulous. There's not enough organisations out there to get help, but finding the right person, like you might go and you might find a counsellor and think, oh, don't like this woman or don't like this man. Don't stop. Don't give up and say, oh, no, this isn't going to work for me. Find somebody else because it's so important that you have that assistance. You can't do it on your own. You can't do it with family and friends that may judge you, whereas a counsellor won't judge you. They'll assist you. And a misconception with a lot of people is they think Gamblers Help or any of those sort of organisations are there to stop you gambling. They're not there to stop you gambling. They're to help you understand what's happening to you. You know, and it's like the organisations that I'm in. We're not anti-gambling. We're anti-gambling harm.
Mm.
You know, when it comes to harm, a person that can go out and put $20 in once a year or whatever, that's fine. A person that wants to have a bet on the Melbourne Cup, that's fine. It's when it becomes a harm where you become addicted and you have to do it. And that's what I was like. I had to be there. And I used to get angry. I had a time where I got 100-something free spins on a machine. And I was angry because I was getting these free spins. And yes, I was winning money, but I wasn't pressing the machine. So I'm just sitting there. I was so angry because I was just sitting there. Now that shows that, like, I'm a very intelligent woman. I ran offices all my life, and I'm not a dumb person, but that shows me that I was dumb. I was really dumb in front of those machines. And it's ludicrous to think that.
And you look back and you don't recognize that person?
Definitely not. No, totally different person back then. I was, and prior to that, I was a totally different person. I was a single mum bringing up two boys and, very proud of my boys, and now I'm just a woman that's trying to help others. Something good had to come out of something bad. And, if I can change, and if I can stop anybody going to prison, but if I can change the prison system as well, that would be a bonus. If they listen, and people need to listen to the people that have been there, done that. The lived experience people are so knowledgeable. We know what needs to be done because we've been there.
Do you think women experiencing gambling harm are largely invisible in public conversations about gambling?
A year ago to 2 years ago, I would have said yes. I think now people are starting to sit up and listen to us. Not enough, nowhere near enough. But I think we are becoming people that are listened to and thought of and asked questions. And it's not just women, it's men as well. I just find that in the organisations I'm with that there's more women fighting this battle than men. I don't know why that is, but it is. There are some men, but not as many as what we would like. I think it's just women. I guess the whole situation is that I'm pissed off.
Yeah.
And women, I suppose, get more pissed off than men, maybe. They accept what's happened to them and move on. But I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off at what they've done to me. And that's why I do it. And most of the women I speak to are the same. We're all just so angry about what's happened to us because of the industry. So that's why we did the battle, keep fighting the good battle.
Yeah. And what has been your experience in sharing your stories for advocacy and being involved in those discussions, policy discussions?
Oh, look, it's very you go to these events and like I do the performance with another lady who's an affected other. Her husband was a gambler. And I do my talks and things like that. There's very rarely not one, two, or a dozen people crying. One of our other ladies in our group has got a saying, make them cry. And when you do, and even though you feel sorry for them crying, you do know that they've listened, and they've taken it in and they've felt it. And that's really important. People need to feel the harm that we're being through, feel the stigma, feel the shame, and feel the recovery as well. It's important that people know that you can recover from this and move on. Otherwise your life's pretty miserable if you think you have to stay the way you are. Um, I feel great when people come up and say thank you. I had a lady once come up and say, my daughter's turning 18 at the weekend and we were going to take her to Crown, but we're not going to go now. And that really made me feel really good because I thought, well, yeah, how wonderful is that? You know, they're not going to
Mm.
get that lady's money. She's not
Yeah.
going to expose her daughter to gambling, you know, and it really sort of makes you feel good. And we've had researchers, we've even had a doctor down in Tasmania come up absolutely in tears, and she said, I've treated people with a gambling disorder for a long time, you know, just talking to them as a counsellor. But watching your performance has really hurt me. And she was
Mm.
in tears, and she said, watching a lived experience person move around the room, and like as I throw money and then I'm crying and talking about going to prison, and it really moves people.
Yeah.
So it helps me, unpacks my feelings. I can actually do it now without falling on the floor crying my heart out. I can actually survive the whole performance.
Mm.
And yeah, I get tired after it, but I cope with it. And the moving of the people, the feeling and the appreciation from the people is what encourages you to do more.
Yeah, amazing. In the research, we've looked at kind of the traditions, Australian culture traditions of taking your the parents taking their 18-year-old to the pokies as a rite of passage. So you don't really see that counter message if you're not in the room.
No, no, you don't. And it is like a rite of passage is to take somebody to a pub, and 99% of the pubs have got pokies. So naturally, you
Yeah.
go to the pokies as well. That's what we've got to change. That's a culture we've got to change. It's the same as, you know, betting on the apps. That's something we've got to change. You know, like there was a group I was with the other week, and they were putting an ad together for gambling, and it was all about gambling on the phones and horse racing and young men. And I said, why on earth in this ad have you got the men sitting in a pub on the phone? Why not have them at a picnic and their wives are over there and they're over there and they're on the phones? Why does it have to be the stigma of a pub?
Mm.
You know, why do you think that people just gamble at a hotel? They don't. You can gamble in your own bed. You know, so I'm hoping they've changed the layout of the ad.
Right. Yeah, we're developing some of the resources now is showing people that, there's lots of reasons people go to venues and that the gambling's right there, but then also, ads on TV, scrolling through their phone, being accessible on their phones. It's everywhere.
The ads on the TV are absolutely disgusting. They're like watching a little movie, aren't they? And then you get that message after it,
Mm.
and the message is better than what it used to be. But for starters, there shouldn't be any ads on the TV, and we all know that. And the government going back on the Peter Murphy report was disgusting. He's done nothing as far as I'm concerned. He's just breezed over it. But we'll keep that good fight going and eventually get the ads off. It took a while to get smoking ads off, so let's keep
Right.
battling that one.
Yeah.
But they also need to really monitor the phones because that's where they're going to get our kids to start
Mm.
gambling. And like I when I first came out of prison, I put up a little thing on my computer as a game for children, Alice in Wonderland, find everything, and I thought, oh, that'd be relaxing. You just have to click on this and find that and find this and find that. But every level I got through came up a pokies machine.
Yeah.
And
You
that
have to
was a
watch the
children's
ads.
game.
Yeah.
And it was a Microsoft game. And I was absolutely disgusted. And I wrote to them and said, what the hell? You don't do it. Don't do it to our children. Like I'm only one voice,
Mm.
but it was so bad. And I thought, yeah, that's triggering me again as well. And the ads trigger. People that are gambled, the ads can trigger, even though I never gambled on horses, those ads can still trigger me.
Yeah.
And whenever you see pokie machines in the news or anything like that in the background, because they're not supposed to show them properly, it's triggering. Because I'm one of these people that used to want to know how the machines worked. I always used to analyse the machines.
Yeah.
Yeah, and seeing them in the background still makes me think, oh, I wonder how that one works,
Right.
which is really bad
Yeah.
considering it's like 10 years last week that I went to prison,
Mm.
but that is still there. And like I said, I've just got to learn how to control it.
10 years. That's a big milestone.
Mm. 10 years last week that I went to prison.
Mm.
Yeah, it's been a while. Gone quick.
Yeah. Not much change with the gambling reform though.
So there's been little bits.
Yeah.
There's like the closing hours that
Yeah.
happened. I stood up with Daniel Andrews when he announced that, and I was up in front of the media, and I made him cry, which was good. You know, yes, he thought he was really smart when I first got there. Do you know? I asked him the question, "Do you know anything about me?" And his answer was, "Oh, you're just one of those gamblers, aren't you?"
Right.
And I just looked at him and I thought, "Am I?" Right? And then I got up to the podium after him and Melissa Horn said their piece about the changes that are happening, and I told the media all about my story, and I made Daniel Andrews cry in the background.
Yeah.
After the thing, I said, "Am I just one of those gamblers?" And you said, "No." And I said, "Do not ever judge somebody like that again."
That's
No, I
that's
don't
so
care whether he's my
powerful.
prime minister. I'll let him know how I feel.
Yeah.
So, but again, that's education. You've got to
Mm.
teach them. It's not a choice. Playing these things and getting addicted to these things, isn't it? I didn't choose this. This wasn't on my bucket list to go to prison. It wasn't on my bucket list to steal money. It wasn't on my bucket list to become addicted to something. It's a choice. It's not a choice.
100%. Speaking of, do you think lived experience is listened properly in gambling reform? Listened to properly?
Um, Again, 2 years ago, I would have said no. Now I think, yes, we are starting to be listened to. We are starting to be taken seriously.
Hmm.
Probably not by the ones that we want them to. Like we would love to have a meeting with Albanese, but he keeps chickening out of seeing us.
Yeah.
We've met with his private secretary one time when we were up there, and we made his assistant and him get a bit teary, which is good. But the ones that we need to change and forcefully change, we can't seem to get meetings with. But we have got a lot of allies, and it's getting bigger and bigger. And hopefully, coming up to the Victorian elections, we're
Mm.
going to hit them hard and fast with the gambling statistics. And hopefully, whoever gets in will start really listening to us. Do researchers like yourself and Sam and the lived experience people and like our Alliance for Gambling Reform. We know what it's about. We know the harm. Talk to us. We can tell you what to do.
Yeah,
We
that
can
was
tell
actually
you
my
the
next
changes.
question. What do people with lived experience bring that traditional kind of policy conversations are missing?
Um, Policy change. I think lived experience people need it can I can understand what they need to do to the machines and for people. Like we had a meeting last night and I was saying that one thing that I would like to see is a mandatory Australia-wide card, federal card, issued by the government, not by any club or industry, and linked to your tax return. So that you cannot, and for them to say, well, okay, you can only spend a quarter, one-fifth, whatever, of your money per year in gambling. Now, if that was in when I was gambling, I would never have gone to prison because I couldn't spend. Why steal?
Mm.
So that would have saved my life. That would have saved what happened to me. And it would save, as I said, it saved my life, but it would save many lives that aren't here now.
Mm.
So,
And there wasn't any kind of protective measures that, if you stole $400,000, how that they could have asked where that money was coming from.
when back then when I signed up for Crown down here in
Mm.
Victoria, I they asked me how much on the form you had to fill in to get a card. How much would you like to spend in a day? And I wrote down $1 million, and they allowed that. Now that is just ridiculous, right? A little bit more stringent now, apparently. Not that I've gone in to sign up for
Mm,
Crown. They got this your play card things, but I don't. That again, still that's not a mandatory thing yet.
mm,
Everything needs, and I know people say, "Oh, your own privacy, you should be able to do whatever you like, and personal responsibility and all that." It doesn't work like that. Personal responsibility for a product that's dangerous is silly. Personal responsibility for drugs, it's illegal. So why aren't pokies illegal? Or why aren't there more signs to say they're dangerous? There's so
absolutely.
many things that can change. And that's just one. Again, change the hours. That needs to change.
Mhm.
Shorten them. But we'll keep battling, keep
Yeah.
fighting.
Yeah. A lot of your advocacy is about making sure that other people don't experience the same harms that you went through. What changes would you hope to see to protect future generations from gambling harm?
I look more knowledge and awareness, more learning at a younger age. Like we need to get into the schools, start young. And we need to get into schools even at primary school, late in the primary school sector, because kids, like everywhere you go and you ask kids, like a simple question, who do you think is going to win the football this week? They'll always say, oh, the odds are. Well,
Mm,
that's disgusting. That should not be happening. Kids should not even think of odds. They should think of a team, not an odds. So getting in and educating children from a young age about the damage that can happen, educating the parents to keep an eye on the children of what they're looking at on the phones and TV and everything else. Education is the only way we're going to slow this down. We're never going to stop it, but we could slow it down.
absolutely.
Government taking, like, we heard that they're going to slow the machines down from 2.4 seconds a spin to 3 seconds a spin. What a lot of rot. 3 seconds every spin. You can still lose $1,000 in an hour.
Yeah.
So that is just that. When they told me that was just ludicrous. I thought, yeah, you've got to be kidding me. You
Mm,
know, there's other things, like mandatory when you go to prison because of gambling. No, I could have come out of that prison that day and I could have gone and gambled. I
yeah.
had nothing in my court papers to say that I couldn't gamble. So, not that you want to punish people more than going to prison, but having something like you have to sign up for self-exclusion throughout Australia, or you have to not go into a venue or whatever, that's something that should be mandatory for a
Mm,
prison sentence that involves gambling. So, like drug addicts and alcoholics come out with a thing to say they can't drink and they can't take drugs, but there's nothing for gambling. So that needs to change as well. So there's a lot of
yeah.
ideas that us being lived experience have got. It's just getting it to the right people.
Yeah. And
That's
it's
the
great that
matters.
you're going to that, presenting at that justice conference, and hopefully a lot will come from it. I'm sure people's eyes will be opened from hearing your story.
Well, it's all about people that have been in prison and the justice system and the changes
Mm,
and the change the strip search to just stand up, like you go through an airport now and you put your hands out and there's an X-ray. That in preference to strip search, because
right.
that's just so demeaning when you
Mm,
go into prison. There's so many things that like I had to do weed tests every now and again, and yet I wasn't in there for drugs or alcohol.
mm.
And it's so demeaning to the person that's in there. And like I said, I was 64 when I first went in, or when I went in, not first went in, because there's not going to be a
Yeah.
second.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to change.
Mm. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and perspectives with us today. And I really appreciate your openness and willingness to have these important conversations. Before we finish, is there anything you would say to other women who might be experiencing something similar that you went through?
The main thing I'd like to say is don't wear the shame. Don't wear the shame. Get the help. Talk to other people that you might know. Contact people like Glee, even contact Deakin University. They know where to put you on, who to put you on to get help. Don't wear it, and don't be ashamed of getting help either. A lot of people think, oh, I can't go to a counsellor because that's making me feel weak or horrible. It's not. It's actually making you stronger. You're a strong person if you stand up and say enough is enough. So it's so important to say enough's enough. I'm going to get help. I don't care what my friends and family think. I know how I feel. And honestly, you're not the only one. There's thousands of us out there.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for being part of the series. Conversations like these are really important in helping people better understand how gambling has become normalized within everyday life and in opening up conversations about support, prevention, and change for women. And just a reminder that if anything discussed in today's episode has raised concerns for you, support services are available, and I'll put some down in the show notes. Thank you all so much for listening. And if today's discussion resonated with you, we encourage you to share this episode and explore other episodes in the series to hear more lived experience perspectives and conversations about how we can better support and respond to gambling harm.